Hello and welcome to our Ethnic Reborn painting course, lesson 11 already. You have made a beautiful face and two gorgeous arms, and it's finally time to get started on the leggies of our dear Clara, because now they don't match at all. And you can see that they are wet because I already washed them. In this lesson, I'm going to teach you all about undertones in the legs, in the feet and the nails. And we're going to work on creating our first depth onto the legs. And I'm very excited to get started. But before we're going to paint on the legs, please like this video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. I am excited to get started. Did you know that I've written a book with all of the reference photos, all of the informations and everything I talk about in this video and the whole video series, and the summaries of all the steps we are taking today, so that you can look everything back up if you forget something, because the lessons are long and we're talking about a lot of things. You can now buy a copy of the book, a physical copy of the book, through the link underneath this video. And you could also download the ebook to have everything sent to you to your email. I'm excited to get started. Let's get into it. Let's get started with the legs. And before we're going to paint, it's important to first mat the legs. Grab a scoop of your matte varnish. We're going to paint in sections just like the arm. So first we're going to start with the inside of the feet. And to my liking, the creases are a bit too big. So we're going to fill them up like this with some matte medium, because I don't want them to be this deep, and then dab them out. So if you find your creases too thick, too deep, and it doesn't matter what kind of kit you have, even if you have another kit where you think, well, these creases are a bit too much for me, then you can just simply fill them up with some matte medium or some matte varnish, just like that. Blend it out nicely. And it looks all white, but it will all dry translucent. So I took a lot of it out accidentally, so let's fill them up a little bit more again. Just like that. Okay, grab your sponge and dab it. Then go to the other side. And I find these creases too thick as well, so I fill them up with matte varnish too. And I dab the toes just like we did with the fingers, so that we can get inside all of the edges and the creases. And that's the nice thing about varnishing in the beginning. It gives some tooth, but it can also fill up some holes or cracks or things that are broken, or anything that you don't like about the sculpt. You can sculpt a little bit with your varnish or with your medium. So now let's go over the ankles. Because they have very deep creases as well, I want to fill them up a little bit. And then blend the ankle. Okay, and then we continue with the normal sections just like we did with the hand. Okay, first the inside of the underleg. Is that how you call it? No. The bottom of the leg. The inside. Then blend. inside. And the knees, of course. And blend again. And then the inside. And after that, the outside of the upper leg. And then dab it nice and smooth. So you have a beautiful tooth to work on. Okay, go over with your wand tip and check if there is no dust or dirt gathering in the paint. Paint the blues, and the blues are always our first layer, and before we're going to do that, we're going to study our reference photos and to see where the blue is going to be. And we're not only looking at blue as a color, but we're also mainly looking for dark areas in the legs and the feet. You will notice that when we're painting the blues in the arms, in the feet and the legs, that they're in similar places as the arms. So you can also look at your arms and look at the places that are darker. But first, let's start to look at our reference photos. Let me get our pointed brush and just a little bit of blue. We're going to start with the front of the legs, or the outside of the legs, just what you want to call them. And as you can see in the picture here, let's start at the top. The top is not very visible in the pictures, but we remember the balloon principle, and the legs are banded. And what you see when the leg is banded, that the pigment gathers there on the places that where the leg is banded. All right, and also what we can see in this picture is that the creases are a bit darker. Let's paint all the creases darker. You can do this with your drawing too. If you've downloaded the ebook, you can find the same pictures to practice on for finding the blue parts, I mean the darker parts. These leggies do have little holes in the knees, so they are a little bit darker too. And you can see that the ankle themselves is darker, but we are going too fast. We are still working on the creases, so all the creases are a bit darker, as you can see. And as this leg is bended forwards like that, the feet is bended, you will see that the whole ankle on this part is darker as well. And we're going to slowly connect them to the rest of the ankle, but the darkest part is there. Okay, we can do the same with the inside of the leg. So remember that this part was a little bit darker, but since I didn't know what I wanted to say. Also the creases, as you remember, they are darker, and the leg is bended here as well, so the inside is going to be darker, the whole inside, and the creases in here. Okay, there are some creases in here that are a bit darker as well. As you can see, these feet have a lot of creases, but I made them a little less deep by painting some varnish into them, because I don't like creases to be too deep. Okay, a little bit in here as well. The top of the knees, as you can see in the reference photo and also in the picture of our model, are darker as well. Not all babies have this dark knees when they are already banded, because the pigment is stretched out, but these babies do. I mean, our model does have a little bit of darkness on the knees, just permanently, a little bit more pigment. Also, as you can see at the toes, just like with the hands, there is a bit of a darkness at the nails of the feet. You don't really see them here. Okay, these are the dark parts. Let us paint them onto our doll as well. And when we paint on the doll, we are going to also just paint the whole ankles. You can't really see it this way, it's easier to see. Okay, let's get started on our doll. First, grab one leg. Make yourself a mixture of 5% of blue with 95% of medium. And then try it on your translucency paper. Amazing. Let's start at the inside of the feet. And we're going to start with all of the creases that we can find. Just a very light glaze on there. Well, that's a bit much, as you can see. So keep your dry brush close so you can directly blend. Inside at all of the places where the toes touch the inside of the foot, and then dab to blend. If you don't dab, you might accidentally take off everything that you've just painted, and you don't want to take it off. You just want to blend it out a bit. Like that. And here as well. Okay, I'm going to paint to grab my smaller brush, which makes it easier. Turn around and paint inside the creases where the toes touch each other, and also the lines in here, and then go over all of the lines that you can find. And you can do this roughly. You don't need to be very precise, because this will be one of the layers deep under the skin. So also the skin that is touching the nails. Just like that. Gorgeous. And then blend. Okay, I just see that I forgot to mark this part. So there's always a little bit of a triangle shape in here. And we don't want to miss that. Okay, the creases of the foot. Let's paint over all of the creases. with a little bit of paint on your brush, not too much. Let's go in here because that's not so easy with a bigger brush. Just like that, and the rest of the creases is easier to reach and we can use a bigger brush for that. So first around the ankle, it's a bit of a bluish tone. Around the ankle. And then of course grab your sponge and blend. And as you can see on the inside of the foot, I know it's not a darker area, but you can see here that it's a little bit bluish. And we're going to paint that as well, because this is just the perfect glaze for that. Okay, gorgeous. Just a little bit of a bluish tone, and go over all of the creases that you can find. And of course, as we just discussed, the knee, just the totality, the whole knee. And this time you're going to still connect it to the inside of the knee as well. We did not paint that here, but we're going to connect it just like that. Later on we can differentiate in the darkness, because then the middle of the knee will be darker than the rest of the knee, but for now it will just show us the darker areas inside of the creases. Dab. And then towards the hip, just the top of the leg. Very, very pretty. And as you see, the layers are still very, very thin. Okay, well, these are the dark areas. Repeat that with the other leg. Let's get the Naphtha Crimson and paint the red areas. First, we're going to map them on our picture. And again, you can use the picture in the workbook that I made. Just some Naphtha Crimson. You could also use Nails Red. Okay, when you look here, there is obviously red through the whole part, but we're going for contrast first. So, and then after that we're going to go for color. So that is why we're going to start with the biggest pieces of red. As you can see here, the inside of the foot is a little bit pink. But when we look at the middle of the foot, it's more purplish blue. So yes, there's red in there too, but we're going to paint on that later. We're just going for the biggest parts of red. As you can see, the tops of the inside of the feet are redder than the rest of the, of the toes. The tops of the toes, this part of the toes is redder than the rest of the toes. So we're making them red as well. And of course, the nails. Make yourself a mixture of 50% Nails Red and 50% Naphtha Crimson. Mix a nice red together and take 5% of your red with 95% of medium. This is way too red because there's a lot of red still in my brush. I'm going to clean it to make it easier. I can see that there's some dry paint in the medium, so I'm not going to use that medium now because I don't want dry paint on my doll. grab the paint, because if we grab the medium towards the paint, we need way more paint, more medium, and we want to save that. So let's try on our translucency paper. Nice and gorgeous. All right. First start with the biggest parts that we just marked. And it's just a simple, very thin glaze. Very simple thin glaze that is barely visible, because that's what we want. Our first layers need to be very thin. We don't want them to be very, very thick. We're just marking the darker parts, and right now we're marking the red parts. And as you can see, I use the side to go into the creases so they don't get darker than the rest of the foot. Okay, as I said, also the tips of the toes, and you can go over the nails in this first layer. Totally over the nails and into the cuticles, and just the tips of the toe. Because again, we are marking the parts that are darker, or that are redder in this case. The blue was to mark the dark parts. The red is to mark the red parts. Grab yourself a dry brush and dab into the cuticles as to just blend it out nicely so they don't get blotchy. Okay, and do the same with all of the other toes. I paint them one by one and I blend in between. If you paint them all, they might your paint might get blotchy because it's dried and then you cannot blend anymore. So first paint, then blend, then paint, then blend. Don't paint them all and then blend them all, because the paint might already be dry and not be blendable. So very pretty. And then blend again. Always go over with your one tip in between to take out dirt or hair that you can find. So I see that we still have a lot of this glaze left. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over all of the dark areas as well. In this case, it means go over the part of the toes that has wrinkles on them, or creases, however you might call them, and give them a little bit of a shadow, a reddish shadow. See? Since we're using a little bit of the primary method, and this part is going to be brown, not red, but there is red in brown, as you can see in the color wheel in your ebook. Just like that. And we're going to do the other dark areas, and then we're going to do the small creases with our small brush, but we still have our biggest brush in our hand, so we can use that first. So go over the darkest areas, just like the blue parts that we have marked. Go over all of them. Still connect the knees towards the inside of the knees. I see a piece of dirt. Inside the creases that you can find, all of them. Exactly. And then the top of the leg. Gorgeous. Well, now we're going to grab our small brush again to go into the smaller creases in between the toes. And blend in the creases of the toes. And when I still have this one, there are still some smaller creases left. These. And on the inside as well. And I know this is just a matter of practice, so the more you practice, the easier it will go. And the quicker you will paint. But don't worry if you're not painting as quick as me. It's not a race or a competition. It's about having fun and learning something new. And that's very important to me, that you're having fun. So obviously I have been painting for years and years. I've not been painting, I'm not painting dolls. I've not been painting dolls for long. But I have a lot of years of experience in painting portraits of babies. So please don't compare yourself to the pace that I paint. Just do what feels right for you. Take your time, because you deserve to take your time. Okay, well, one more crease here. And if there are creases that you don't find very pretty, then don't paint over them. For example, these, I think they are not very pretty, in my opinion. If you love them, then just paint them. So I don't accentuate them with more red, I just ignore them a little bit. And that way you do have some influence in what the doll shape is. Okay, let the red iris dry, and then we're going to continue to paint veins. Okay, the time has come to start painting veins. I do find it really hard to find good reference photos for veins in leggies. The skin of the legs is often a little bit thicker, but in the inside of the feet we do see some veins, and we know there are veins underneath the other skin layers, so we're going to paint them just like we did on the hands and the arms. 5% of blue and 95% of medium or thinner. First, let me show you how to paint veins on the feet. Remember, veins are like trees or like rivers. So you have the main branch. Let's paint it again so it's nice and visible. And then they have thinner branches. Remember, just like a river or like a tree. And you can add them wherever you want. You can see them in here as well. See, this is the main branch, the thickest one, and then in here and in here and in here, see, the main branch and the smaller ones. And we can also see them in the rest of my hand. See? So that is what we're going to duplicate on these leggies and feetsies as well. So this part of the skin is always a bit thinner, so it's more visible in here. Main branch and tiny ones, just like that. And when you're going to paint them on your doll, and we're going to dab most of them off, so there's just little tiny hints of the veins visible. But they'll be mostly visible in the thinner places. So I'm just freestyling a bit. You can see in these reference pictures that you can see a little bit of a bluish hue where veins would be, but they're not really visible that much. Also, this thinner part has more veins, and the inside of the leg is always a bit thinner than the outside too, so you can paint some in there as well. Okay, this is just an idea of how we're going to paint the veins, and let me show you on the doll how we're going to do that. So the exact placement doesn't matter that much. Let's see if the color is the same. Perfect. We're starting with the inside of the feet. Remember, the inside, just like with the hand, the inside is thinner and the thicker parts are thicker. Well, obviously. So let's first start with a main little branch. Let's act like they're a tree. And if they're barely visible, that is exactly what you want. You don't want thick blue veins. You just want the hint of vein, just as you see in the reference photos as well. And remember, they're never like a straight line. They're always wiggled down a little bit. All right, this part, the inside of the feet, is always a bit more, the veins are always a bit more visible in there. Remember, they're flowing towards the heart, so they're always going up, because the veins are there too, so the blood can travel and bring oxygen and other helpful things to the body. So I'm doing what I've painted here, so just some main veins that are a bit thicker and some smaller ones to add. In here is always a bit thinner as well, the skin, so there's more of the veins visible. If you don't like your doll to show too many veins, you can always skip this step. Some people like their doll to have more thin skin. In the reference photo of our Sarah, we don't really see veins, but it doesn't matter that doesn't mean she doesn't have them, because the pictures are not professionally taken. So that's why I don't really see the veins. It needs a very good camera to pick up veins. Okay, just paint them wherever you want. And remember that the thinner the skin, the more the veins are visible. But the veins should be very, very translucent. That is the most important thing. Because you don't want them to look painted on. Well, since we still have this blue, we're going to add a layer of blue over the whole nails. And this is, you need to do this very carefully. Don't put too much on your brush. Okay, since we still have this layer, let's go over the dark parts as we mapped them out there. So inside the creases, underneath the nails. Very pretty. Look how the doll already gets its depth, even though it's just primary layers yet. Still, how do you say that? Well, you know what I mean. Inside of the creases. Okay, don't forget to blend. Well, this brush was a little hard. Okay. Very pretty. Well, we're still having this mixture on our tiny brush. Let's do the other tiny creases too. Gorgeous. And in the back of the little foot, there are a little bit much creases to my liking, so I only paint in the biggest ones. And of course at the folds of the feet, I mean the folds of the toes where they touch the feet. I think that's really pretty. And the back. So since we still have this little mixture, let's go over with our pointed brush, 5% of blue, 95% of thinner, and let's paint the ankle, because that will appear darker, just like that, and blend it out very well. Pretty. All right, the same with the whole knee. And blend it out. Inside of the knee. And I connect them to the next crease, because this area here is a lot of skin coming together, so more pigment on one place. So that's why I connect them right now. The last crease and these small ones. And then of course the top towards the hip. Just a slight blue glaze. All right, so pretty. I think it's amazing how much depth we create in just so little layers. Okay, now it's time for our rough modeling. For our rough modeling, we're first going to make a purple, and we're going to do that with 33% nails red, 1/3, 1/3 of Naphtha crimson, 33%, 1/3 of phthalo blue, Going to make a beautiful purple with that. It's going to be a bluish purple. Because the deepest layers are bluish, and the more we reach the top skin layers, the redder they become. With 95% of medium, because the first layers needs to be very translucent. That's a lot better. Alright, let's get started with the inside of the foot. Just with the hands, we're going to do this in 6 sections again. So first the foot, the inside of the foot, that's section 1. Then the outside of the foot, number 2. The inside of the leg. How do you say that? The bottom leg, the inside of the bottom leg. Then the outside, the bottom leg. I don't know if that's. And then the top of the leg, the inside, and the outside. Those are the parts that we are going to paint in. We don't paint the whole leg and then blend. No, we do them in parts because, again, we don't want things to dry and not to be blended well. So the top of the foot, I see a hair. We don't want a hair. So on the foot and inside of the foot, the modeling is always a bit thicker, thinner, the smaller dots, and on the legs the dots are a bit bigger. Also, the first few layers of modeling are rougher and thicker. That's why I call them rough modeling. They just show that there is depth into this in the skin, and the more we reach the top layer of skin, the smaller the modeling gets. Very well, very pretty. Okay, then the inside, the bottom leg, I don't know how to. Under leg? You say underarm and upper arm, right? But do you say under leg and upper leg? I don't think so. Well, I'm good at painting, I'm not good at English. But I hope you understand me. There will be a native English speaker who takes a look at my ebook or printed version of it and corrects all the mistakes. So I'm very happy with that, because my English is okay, but not book worthy. Okay, I make up words and stuff. Well, Deb, look how beautiful and how much depth this layer gives. Makes me so excited. Always. Oh, a hair again. I always vacuum clean the room. It's very important to vacuum clean the room you're working in, or to make sure that there is no dust in your room, or at the least dust as possible. If you have pets, you would preferably not have them come into your reborn painting room, because of the hairs. Except for if you have pets who are anti-allergy, that don't really lose their hair that much. Okay, gorgeous. And now it's time for the last layer, which is the skin layer. Our skin layer, it's important to do the exercise from the ebook or the printed version of the book, which is called lining the skin, because as you can see in these pictures, skin in the food, the skin in the food is different color on the underneath the food than when it is on top of the food, because there's a different type of skin and there's not that much pigment underneath the food as it is on top of the food, but there is a very clear border, and just like we did with the hands, it's important to not go over that border because that will make the skin look unnatural. In here again you can only see a little bit of the brown skin. Let's see, in here it's the line we can find on here. Okay, yes, so that is very important. Do not go over the lines when we're starting to paint. For this layer we're going to need 5% brown earth with 95% of medium. First we're making a glaze. Alright, let's test it out. Beautiful, I think it matches the other colors well. Okay, as we did with the finger, we're going to start with the lines. So as you can see in the reference photo, first you're going to touch the nail and then go over the lines. And as you see, the line goes really on top of the feet and not really on the bottom. There's a very clear edge. And on the feet I love to blend the edge out with my dry brush and then continue to paint. Just grab my sponge so it's ready if I need it. Okay, going to connect the lines first again onto the nail, and then down, and then you can connect it, okay, towards the nail and then down there again. Very nice, very nice. Again, the nail and don't just do what you think where the line is, but study your reference photo to see where exactly the edges are, or the borders, or however you best call the difference, the line. And of course the inside of the feet, very well. I think that's perfect. I think that is perfect. Okay, that was the hardest part, and now we're going to grab our biggest brush and paint the rest of the leg. Let's see if everything is blended well, because that is very important. Take your time for that. Okay, we're going to start with the bottom part of the leg, and we're just going to attach the paint to where we left off last time with the lines. Okay, Okay, and once you've painted the inside, go inside the creases too, very, very important. Then we're going to blend to get a nice and even skin. Oh. Then outside of the leg, bottom leg. I still call it bottom leg because I don't know the right word for it. I'm always so focused on painting and writing that I really forget what the words are. I need to make some more, I see. Okay, first the inside again. Connect to where you left the last time, and it's okay to go over it a little bit. As long as you paint quickly, because otherwise it will dry before you're able to blend, and that's a shame. All right, and then the top of the upper leg. Blend it well. Okay. And then of course you're going to repeat this with the other leg. And then you're done with the layers of today. Wow, look how far you've come already. The face is finished, the arms are finished, and we finally started on the legs. In the next lesson, in episode 12, we're going to bring depth to the legs. But before we're going there, if you want to be part of a like-minded community of people who want to learn how to paint ethnic babies really well and lifelike, please join our Facebook group called Ethnic Reborn Painting Class. And you can be part of our community and we can help each other out. And also, if you haven't already, download our ebook or buy the printed version so you can use all of the pictures I've showed you. You can zoom in on them, have the high quality ones, and you can draw on them if you want to. I'm super excited for the next lesson. Will I see you there? Bye!